Hello and welcome back to another episode of Accountants Lounge. I'm your host, Dawn Patton, and I'm here with Ashley Ford. And today, as we share our journeys of growing virtual accounting firms, something we wanted to talk about was discovery calls. In past episodes, we have mentioned, like, just casually dropped, oh, the workflow funnel or discovery call workflow or funnel, whatever, like any of this lingo. And we're realizing, maybe we should chat about what we mean by that. We know what we mean, but do you know what we mean?
Yeah.
That's the question. And since we're here for you sharing our experiences, to us, discovery calls are kind of like a foundational workflow in our businesses. That's how we get all of our clients on the call to sign up for services. So let's talk discovery calls. You ready, Ashley?
I am ready, and I'm so glad we're covering this. It's one of those, we just assume everyone knows the workflows and funnels behind our businesses because we're so familiar with them. So I'm glad that we're diving into
Duh.
one of them today.
Yeah. Hey, before we dive into like what the workflow and funnel actually is, though, I do want to take a minute to talk about discovery calls and kind of the why behind this. I'd just be curious to know if you've always done discovery calls or not, like how that evolved for you, because I actually don't think I know that story. Um, so I'll start it off by saying us and discovery calls, for us, it is a big vibe check.
Yep.
At this point, we hope that they viewed our website, that they know what services we're offering, kind of the price points that we're offering it at, just different packages that we have, but sometimes they don't. And so we're going to share all of that in the discovery call. But really, for us, discovery calls are like the start of the onboarding process. We want to get to know our client. We want to answer some basic questions. We're not gathering any key information at this moment. It's simply, hey, do you want to work with us and do we want to work with you? And we're trying to answer that for both sides. I feel like
Yeah.
in the beginning of my business, I thought of, I didn't call them discovery. I think I called them sales calls or something like that. Um, because it was really me trying to like sell them to
Sell,
work with
sell,
me.
sell. Yeah.
Yeah. And that really changed when I was like, but wait, I don't want to work with all of these people.
Yeah.
Part of this is me screening them to see if they're a good fit for our firm too. So it actually is, it goes both ways. It's on both people who are digging and discovering. And that's why we changed the name to discovery calls of we want people who are interested in working with us. It's we do free discovery calls. So it's a free commitment. And we have another episode where we talk about should you or should you not
Yeah.
charge for discovery calls. So go listen to that as well. We'll go ahead and link that below. But really, it's just kind of this exploration of are we going to be a good fit? Essentially, is our discovery calls.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way about them. They are a vibe check. They're for both sides. They're making sure that you get along and that you feel like they would be a good fit for what you offer and for your team to
Mhm.
serve them. I think a lot of seasoned accountants would agree that a lot of times on discovery calls, after you've had experiences with clients and you kind of learn from different clients, you're able to pick out what might be some yellow or red flags on those discovery calls. And I think that's a really important process and a really important part of having that discovery call as well.
Yeah.
Is you're really just hearing their needs and making sure that it's something that you offer in your services and that you can
Yeah.
really give it to them.
And I think that was a little bit different for me because typical corporate accounting firms, anyone who walks in the door, you're for the most part, you're serving them and then you're just trying to decide what price point you're putting on that. Our firm, we've decided to build it a bit differently where we've kind of niched down on like what services we provide
Yeah.
and who we provide these services for.
Yeah.
And so that's where the discovery call became a double-sided thing instead of just, oh, you
Yeah.
want us to do this for you? Tell us what you want to do and we'll give you a price point for it. Like, we don't play that game at our firm. We play the game of these are the things that we offer. Do you fit into these boxes? And if not, that is fine. Let's hopefully we have a referral for you. We've really tried to build up our referral system so that we
Yeah.
have a referral for people. And there are plenty of times on discovery calls where I'm giving them referrals information because we found out that they weren't a good fit for us.
Yeah, and I think this is actually a perfect segue into the workflows and funnels because the reason that you and I both have a workflow or a funnel leading to that discovery call is to
Mhm.
help continue vetting out the people that are getting on that discovery call. So
Yeah.
you'd kind of mentioned before my story behind discovery calls and if we've always had them and we have I've always done discovery calls, we've always done free discovery calls. I have actually always enjoyed the idea of getting on the phone with another business owner and listening to what their pain points are and seeing if I can address those pain points. So I've also not looked at discovery calls as this huge selling process, like I'm trying to sell them on me. It's more, I want to know what are you struggling with? And if we can solve that problem and we're a good fit, great, let's move to the onboarding process. But I
Yeah.
think the key and part of that and what I've learned from the beginning of my business to now is I in the past have gotten on a lot of discovery calls with people who just were not a good fit for one reason or another. Or I get on the call and it ends up they're trying to sell me on something, but they booked a discovery call. And I'm like surprised on the
Yep.
call. Like, I thought you were here for accounting, bookkeeping services, and here you are, you're trying to sell me on some product. And actually, just this week, I had someone book a discovery call. And now, as part of our workflow and funnel, I could see that that's what they were booking the call for. They have to fill out a form and answer some questions about them and about their business. And based on those questions, I could see clearly that they were going to sell me on something. And I was able to shoot them an email and say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and cancel our discovery call. We can chat via email, or I'm not interested in what you're selling, which was the case with this specific scenario. But I'm able to see that up front so that I'm not blocking time on my calendar and getting myself prepped to go into a discovery sales call, like with a client. And then it ends up out of left field. That's not even what the call is about.
Yeah. Yep. I do the same thing. It's not a fun feeling when that happens of like you feel blindsided, but it's like, oh, well, I guess I could have screened that one better.
Yeah,
So
like I guess we could have not had this call.
yeah. So us too, our discovery call, essentially the way our workflow works is our link is always live. I know yours is too. So
Yep.
it's on our website, it's on our Instagram, it's on our Facebook. We constantly are linking the discovery call links and emails that we're sending out. Um, and for us, there's actually a few of us on our team who take discovery calls. So me and then two other members of my team take discovery calls. Um, we try to workflow wise, we try to like send all the tax discovery calls to this person, send all the accounting discovery calls to this person, send the coaching ones, or like kind of all the miscellaneous ones to me. We try that. It's not it's not a
Yeah.
perfect system. So when you have multiple people just taking discovery calls, if you have any tips for me, let me know. But at this point, it's kind of just like we a little bit all do it all. Um, but we have these links that are live everywhere. We use we actually have a mix right now. Mine's Dubsado, but the other two team members are Calendly links. There's a lot of different systems out there that allow
Yep.
you to have a calendar system where you attach a questionnaire to it, which is the next part that I want to talk about is
Yep.
they should be able to see your calendar, book a certain time, and be picky on what times you let them book. I don't let people book any old time that they want. I have certain times that work better for me for discovery calls. So show that. Um, energetically, energy wise, why would you want to be rolling your eyes when someone books a time that you offered?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So
offer what
true.
you want. And then on that intake form, we ask different questions like what services are you interested in? What's your business name? Tell us more about your business. Are there any specific questions that you want to discuss? And just by asking those few simple questions, we can generally know, like, okay, here's what they want to talk about. Is this a paid consultation call? Should we be sending them an email
Mm.
saying, like, if they're there to just pick our brain and they're not interested in services, because we get those kind of frequently of like, hi, I'm a new business owner and I'm just wondering if I should be an LLC or not. Something like that.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool. Let's, instead of you booking a discovery call, we have multiple blog posts, we have some resources, and or you could book a paid consultation. or
Yep.
something like that, where it's like they have specific questions they want to pick our brain about. That's not a discovery call to me. Now, majority do happen to be discovery calls where they tell us a little bit about their business, or like, hey, I was working with an accountant who didn't file this return and I need help filing this. Like, tell me a little bit more so that I can prep myself.
Yeah.
Or as Ashley mentioned before, sometimes it's like someone trying to sell you a product. And you can tell that on that intake form. And then if you are interested, cool, take the call. But if you're not, make it an email
Yeah.
instead. So I have our office manager screen all of those intake forms and make sure that we're actually hopping on what we think are discovery calls before getting on the calls. But that's been such a game changer to have the intake forms with just a few basic questions.
Yeah, and I think you briefly said this, but it also helps you prepare for the call. So if you're
Yeah.
asking good questions on your intake form and they're letting you know, like to Dawn's point, I had an accountant didn't file a tax form. I need someone's help to file that. Or maybe they're there for bookkeeping services and they give you a little bit of information about what it is that they need. Do they need payroll? Can you loop that into the conversation? It helps you go into the conversation knowing what it is that they're looking for, and then you get to tailor that conversation to what it is that's important to them. And you're not over here talking about tax services when they're there for the bookkeeping side or vice versa.
Yeah.
You're going into that call prepared, knowing what it is that is most important to them, what it is that they're looking for, because they
Mhm.
filled out that intake form. So without that, you're kind of showing up for these calls a little bit blind,
Yeah.
um, which I don't like that. I don't want to go in blind. I want to go in with a little bit of information. If I have time to creep a little, I can do that. I can find out what type of business that they have,
Mhm.
um, and maybe be able to speak to other businesses that we have that are in a similar industry. Like you just get to go into that call more prepared, which just makes the conversation way more smooth,
Yeah.
moves smoothly.
I got you. I mentioned like all the questions that we have on ours. We don't have too many questions, just the contact information and then those couple of questions. Do you have a lot of questions on your intake
No.
form? Okay.
No, it's a handful and they're pretty much the same as yours. It's like,
Yeah.
what services are you interested in? Tell us more about your business. What are you struggling with financially? It's worded a little different, but basically along those lines, kind of like
Mhm.
a what do you need from us?
Yeah.
And it's pretty short and simple. So we don't want to set a huge roadblock. I think you got to think about that with any sales funnels that you have. You are trying to qualify people as part of your own processes to make things go smoother, to save your time, save their time, all of those things. You also don't want to make it so complicated that people are like, oh my gosh, I can't answer 50 questions before I even get on a call with this
Right.
person. Like, I just want to talk to them and be able to ask my questions there. So, you don't want to put up huge roadblocks to the discovery call. So, you do want to keep it short and sweet. And you'll
That's what I was
find yeah, oh, so I was just gonna say, you'll find some people will give you their entire life story in those, and some
Mhm.
people will give you 10 words, but it is still enough for you to know what it is that they're needing.
Mhm. Yep. No, I was gonna say the same thing is like barrier to entry, you want to keep it low. You want to get just enough information where you've screened them enough. But
Yeah,
I mean, this is not an onboarding meeting. This is meant to be a discovery call. So you don't need to know all of I mean, I've seen discovery call intake forms that are really detailed. Like, tell me about your entity. What tax returns have you filed? Where, like, is your bookkeeping to date, or when is bookkeeping systems do you have? Um, Tell me about your past with like your past accountant relationships. When did you start your business? Like I've seen intake forms that are so detailed, and if that works for you, then that
yeah,
works for you. For me, I'm going to wait and I'm going to get that information after they sign the contract and when they're doing the onboarding. Cuz beforehand, I don't need that information to figure out, do you want to work with me and do I want to work with you? If those
yeah,
questions aren't going to help me answer that question. And that's all I'm trying to solve in the discovery call is just answer this one question, which leads us to the part after the discovery call. Once the discovery call has happened, what happens next in the workflow? For us, it's not an automated thing because it really depends how the conversation ended. And so during the discovery call, we get really clear on the end is the ball in the client's court? Are they going to reach out to us?
yeah,
Or is the ball in our court? Most of the time, I try to end that discovery call with balls in our court. We're
yep,
sending you a contract or a link, whatever the next step we decide was happening. Um, because it's not an automated thing, it's going to be different for everyone. To our processes, now I'm emailing my office manager again and I'm saying, here's notes on the call, here's how it went, here's what they're looking for from us. Maybe it's a
Yep.
contract, maybe it's a link to this course, maybe it's a link to a consultation meeting, maybe it's a referrals information, like whatever it is. And then she takes care of it from there. So that's kind of our process.
Yeah, ours is the same. We're ending it. We're trying to keep the ball in our court so that we can make the next move. And the goal
Mhm.
really for us on the discovery call is that they've agreed to work with us, right? They're coming into the discovery call knowing what everything looks like.
Yeah.
We're answering some final questions. We're doing vibe checks on the discovery call, and we're hoping to end that call with a, yep, let's move forward. We'll get the contract over to you. Um, but something I wanted to just touch on briefly and is if you have a lot of questions going into your discovery call, or you're wanting to ask a lot of questions on that lead form so that you can know what to price their services, like I think sometimes people want to find out every
Mhm.
single skeleton in the closet, every single
Mhm.
door that needs to be opened so that there are no surprises in the onboarding process. But I think that you have to naturally build some of that in to your pricing.
Yeah.
And I think nitpicking every single thing and trying to dig really hard in the discovery call process is possibly stressing out the potential client. Um,
And
this is
yourself.
yeah, yeah, exactly, and it's a lot to go through. So, I'm not saying like, obviously, you don't wanna get into the onboarding process and realize they were expecting you to do 8 months of cleanup and that wasn't vetted out and you didn't price it, right? Like,
Yeah.
you do wanna have some of those big conversations, or if you're doing taxes, you need to know if they're up to date on tax returns or if they're needing you to go back and file previous years. Like, those are big items that you can be having on those discovery calls, but you don't necessarily need to know, like, their EIN number and exactly like every single thing about their business going into that discovery call
Mhm.
in order to have a successful one.
Yeah. Yep. And I like what you said. I mean, we have a million other episodes about pricing. Um, but I like what you said about it almost is like you're penny pinching like
Right. Right.
every single thing that they're doing instead of just building some of that into your
Yes.
pricing. And as you take on more and more clients too, and you figure out who your ideal client is, you'll start to be able to price based on other clients like person on the discovery call with you.
Yeah.
Um, and contracts always help with this too, right? Contracts can always say, like, we charge this much for cleanup or this much for outside work or this much for prior
Right.
tax returns. So if you didn't catch something like that, okay, well, that wasn't discussed on the discovery call, but here's what you agreed to on the contract. So yeah, I agree that for the discovery call, keep in mind that the purpose is you answering that question of, can we serve you? Do we want to
Yeah.
serve you?
Yeah.
And do you want to work with us? And a factor of that is going to be the price, but it's not the whole entire, let me get the price exactly right now. Like you have time to figure out all the skeletons in someone's closet, which some of them might not come out for a while. Just saying.
Yeah, no one's to say that if you ask everything you could possibly ask up front that you are going to get all the skeletons because the chances are you
Yeah.
still won't. There's still going to be something that pops up later that you're like, "Oh, okay, here
Well,
we
and
go."
half the time, I mean, I love this, but we work, I mean, you and I specifically, I'm sure a lot of our listeners work with small business owners who are not accountants
Right.
and who give us answers that are completely incorrect, but to them, they thought that that
It's
was the answer.
yeah,
So,
they're not
best,
intentionally hiding
no,
things.
to the best of their knowledge, here are the
Yeah.
facts. As you're digging and digging and digging,
Yep.
you realize, oh, here's actually the truth of it. Like,
Yeah. Yep.
I'm sorry, you have 3 separate LLCs, not 1 business with 3
Yes.
revenue streams. Like, I've definitely had that before. Like,
Oh,
okay.
same. We've definitely uncovered some hidden businesses and all mixed
Oh,
in.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I think overall, when you're thinking about your workflow or your funnel that leads to your discovery call, I think it's about having something that is simple for your potential client to fill out and
Mhm.
also helps you vet people so that not everyone who's not a good fit is booking those discovery calls. and helps you be able to streamline your processes and go into that call feeling prepared.
Yeah, yeah. And even though this is an automated thing, you can do a really good job of putting your personality into it
Oh
and
yeah.
prepping your clients for these calls. So when I mention systems like Dubsado or Calendly or anything like that, that's an automated system. It allows you to send automated email reminders for the calls.
Yep.
And if you're sending those reminders, hopefully you're getting less people sending you up because they're getting the reminders.
Yeah.
You can invite them to add it to their calendar. You can give them a day before reminder, an hour before reminder. You can prep them for what you're going to discuss on the call. Like, here's some questions I might ask, or you can share more about your story and then
Yep.
say, like, I'm excited to invite you to share more. Like, as you share about more of your story, and then you are inviting the client to share more about their story in the discovery call, or however you want it to go, it gives you a lot of opportunities to infuse your personality to prep your clients for these discovery calls so that they can be efficient and effective and everything that you want your discovery calls to be.
Yeah, while still having your voice. Most of these systems, we
Yeah.
use Dubsado, and most of these systems are going to have canned emails already plugged in there for you. And I highly recommend going in and tweaking those to sound more like an actual email you would send. Like you want it to
Hmm.
be in your brand voice. It's the first time they're really seeing emails from you. You want it to feel more personalized, and you can add that personalization in while keeping it automated.
Yep. Yep. I love it so much. And then, like, if someone, it makes it really easy for someone who wants to cancel or reschedule. If
Yep.
they cancel, then they cancel, and we have an automated email. Again, no one has to touch it. An automated email that asks them a follow up question like, why they canceled? Did they mean to actually reschedule? Was there something we could have done different?
Yeah.
Because maybe we can still get that client back. Or if someone needs to reschedule, it doesn't have to be a manual thing on my calendar
Yeah.
that now I'm sending them new dates and new times with when I'm available. Like, no,
Yeah.
just look at the calendar. And it's so nice that it can be so hands off. And I just get to show up to these already vetted discovery calls
Yes. Feeling prepared.
feeling
And
prepared.
excited, like excited to talk to
Yeah.
somebody who is going to be potentially a good fit.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, hey, one of my favorite things, this is kind of like a side thing, but one of my favorite things actually is to ask what their website is on the intake form. It's just the contact information. Do I need to know that? No, I don't. But I love to look at people's websites, or if they don't have a
Same.
website, I also ask for their IG handle. And like 5 minutes before the call, it's not that much time. I'm not
Yeah.
investing a ton into these people yet, but I love to like get on, get a little feel for their personality and how they show up on their website or their social media. Because then I can be putting a face to this person. Because our
Yes.
discovery calls are phone. We don't do Zoom meetings.
Same.
Um,
Ours are over the phone.
Okay, cool. Again, preference thing. I could see a huge benefit to doing Zoom meetings because then there's more like face-to-face personalization. For me, I'm not gonna get dressed and ready every single day. I've got young kids. Who knows how I look that day? So for me, I was like, I'm doing a phone call. Thank you very much. But I like answering the or asking the website Instagram question because then I put like a face to this person.
Yeah.
So there's just like my little tip of it can feel personal even when it's just a quick phone call.
Yes. I do the same. I've assumed that they've creeped on us, right? If they found us through anywhere, through our website, through social media, through someone else, they've probably seen my face. So
Yeah.
I like to creep a little bit because I like to know who
Yeah.
I'm talking to and kind of what their business is about. I also am just fascinated by people's creativity and what they do. So, but I
Hmm.
think it gives you that little bit of insight into who they are before you hop on that call. I love
It
that.
does. I love it. Okay. Actually, we've talked about like everything under the sun with discovery calls. Anything else you want to mention with discovery calls and our workflows, I guess? I know there's a
Yeah.
lot more we could say about
Yeah.
discovery calls themselves, and we have other episodes that's talking about like how like what to discuss on a discovery call or how long to make discovery calls. Or I
Yeah.
mentioned, do you charge for discovery calls or do you not? We'll link all of these below because there's a lot of different things we can talk about just with discovery calls. But anything you want to talk about like with the workflow specifically?
No, I was just going to say if you guys have we did touch on a lot of different areas and aspects of discovery
Yeah.
calls in this episode. And to Don's point, we have other episodes covering other things. But if you have questions that we haven't addressed or that we touched on today's episode and didn't dive deep enough, like it really left you wondering, please leave comments, jump into our Accountants Lounge Facebook group. Like, please
Mhm.
interact with the Accountants Lounge atmosphere because we want to dive deeper into those topics. So if we touched on something and you're like, okay, wait, tell me more, let us know because we would love to dive deeper into it.
Yeah, we really would. This is like actually, you'd mentioned this before, like, sometimes, we say things without realizing other people don't know what we're talking about. Um, I know as accountants, we do that to our clients all the time, and we
Oh, yeah.
want our clients to ask questions when it's like, we're using accounting lingo and we're talking over their head, but we don't realize we're talking over their head because this is our everyday language. But we really don't want to do that to them. So, like, we want them to speak up and ask for clarity.
Yeah.
This is that same thing, but now we're just doing it to our fellow accountants. So, fellow
Exactly.
accountants, if we are speaking lingo that you're like, that's over my head, speak up and say so. Um, Sometimes we're unaware of those things. But like this is a not like
Safe
judgment
space.
free, safe space place. So bring it up. As always, we invite you to join the Facebook group if you haven't already. We invite you to comment below. We invite you to subscribe, to like, to be super involved in all of this because this is
Yeah.
really a community that we're building here. This isn't the Dawn and Ashley show. This is Accountants Lounge community. Let's all learn from each other.
Yeah.
So we can only do that if we're all going to be involved. So thank you for joining us on another episode, and we'll see you again next time.